then we can move on to our next session, which is circular economy and finance. I think when we're discussing all these opportunities, and I'm sure in the groups that you had earlier, finance is a big topic. How do we finance all of these initiatives, these policies, these enabling frameworks? This is the missing piece in the Global Plastics Treaty. So this next topic will be very relevant for us. And we're very excited to have two speakers who are going to be talking about two different tools that we can use and examine and explore as we discuss the circular economy. So our objectives, at the end of this session, we should be able to explain the business case for the circular economy. This is something that we were talking about in the morning, that we have to use the economic argument to convince partners to invest or to integrate circular economy. And by the end of this, our DMC partners should be able to have examples of working finance models in DMCs. And for our ADB staff, at the end of the session, clearly or better understand the role of banks in redirecting finance for circular economy solutions through investments and innovative finance mechanisms. Our first speaker is Guilan Devalon. He is a senior infrastructure specialist for innovation and green finance in ADB on secondment from the French Development Agency. In the Southeast Asia Green Finance Hub project team, he is particularly leading the operationalization of the Blue Sea Finance Hub, which aims to catalyze financing and develop bankable and implementable ocean health and sustainable blue economy projects in Southeast Asia. So Guilan, the floor is yours. Let's give him a round of applause. You have to.
Is it okay? Can you hear me? I always have issues with the mic, you know. Thank you. Thank you, Anna. This picture, really, you saw my wrinkles and lines in front, right? I should have been more cautious next time. How are you? I have been given the tough spot, right? Just after the lunch nap time. But the good thing is you didn't ask me to sing Journey, Don't Stop Believing. I hope it's better for you. Anyway, I'm here to talk about finance and to illustrate what we can do on circular economy, concretely, what we have done. So, yeah, there is one thing called Blue Sea Finance Hub, but I will not linger on that. What I want to explain here is a platform we have initiated. So this platform, a focus on pollution reduction in Indonesia. I had the chance to discuss this morning with our colleagues from the government of Indonesia, partners on that. And this program, through a specific instrument, a policy-based loan, again, this is not an instrument for nap time, because that's a bit technical, but here it works very well, and this is, if I'm not mistaken, the first one ever in Southeast Asia for sure, for plastic waste reduction. And is this replicable to Philippines? I've been in Thailand once, and maybe it will be the third step, but for the time being, we are looking at Philippines for the replication. So I don't need to bore into this. Obviously, you know that, you know what blue economy is, you know the importance for blue economy in Southeast Asia. Obviously, what is important for us to remember, and this is linked to what we want to do and what we are doing, the bottom left here. The ocean is under severe threat. You know all of those threats. Obviously, this is due to climate change, but more so about our anthropogenic activities, human activities. Plastic pollution is one illustration of that, and a dramatic illustration. But obviously, we do have also biodiversity destruction, habitat destruction. When it comes to revenue generating, we have depletion of fish, which is also highly taking a toll on the community livelihoods. So that's just this is just the framework of what the Blue Sea Finance Hub is established into. There is within ADB, sorry, an ocean sustainable blue economy action plan. This action plan is having 3 pillars. There are 4 here because obviously there is 1 pillar on finance. So this is just a framework, not for you to remember. And the Blue Sea Finance Hub. This is a platform. This is many things. These are many things. These are people, resources, capacity building, and management of tier resources. So we are a team here in the Southeast Asia department on the front office, trying to promote greening of infrastructure projects in Southeast Asia department. And we do have money to do that. We do have concessional money from ADB and from also partners like KfW, the German, AFD, the French, EIB, GCF, and some others. We do have some trust fund to do that, and we manage those trust funds. Obviously, those funds, concessional, have some conditionality to be used. But blending finance is necessarily something appealing to DMC's government when it comes to financing some activities. So this is what the Blue Sea Hub is doing. Blue, green. Don't look at the names. This is a bit confusing. So the Blue Sea Hub, we started in 2021, and we had a pilot in Indonesia. So what we did in the last 2 years are the 2 projects here. Very proud of that, because we have done projects that are now embedded into the pipeline between the government of Indonesia and ADB and partners. You can see on the left-hand side. And those projects are fully aligned with the banner on the top, priority strategies of the government. And that's what matters. When you have those priority strategies and national commitments, then you do have a traction, you do have a driver. So we are processing 1 fishing port projects with the Ministry of Maritime Affairs. But here, and I outlined this one, we are processing a PBL, so a policy-based loan. This is a budget loan. This is a loan whereby ADB is financing Ministry of Finance. And this loan, it's not infrastructure, it's not investment projects. There are no equipment, projects, infrastructure underneath. This is a set of reforms. We are pushing a set of reforms, policy, regulations. So basically, the money is being disbursed when and only when the set of reforms is being achieved. So we push reforms. This is a very powerful way of pushing reforms. For the implementing agencies, this is a little bit less attractive because they can't see the money. The money is going to Ministry of Finance. But then there is a lot of technical assistance. And the technical assistance is going for application of the policy action. So this is James' kingdom, I would say, so I will not expand on that. This promoting action on plastic pollution is already benefiting to some activities in Indonesia, Cirebon City, when we do have a representative here, and Storeka also is here and could expand on this. So this is what is being doing, and what is interesting here is kind of the modern and innovative instrument that it results in. You can see here that we are looking at collection fee, retribution fee, digitizing the collection and the retribution fee. How can we make a collection fee, which is not very easy thing to do, a more permanent and stable revenue sources. These are things that this technical assistance is doing. I will not look into this very profoundly. Now, the PBL. So it's called Marine Debris Reduction Program in Indonesia. Why is that? Because there is a national action plan from the government of Indonesia called National Action Plan on Handling Marine Debris. This National Action Plan has been established in 2018. This is a huge overarching document for us, because once it's been established, the government is pushing all the ministries to activate it. And we are here to help and to accelerate it. You see that the financing is quite significant, 1 billion, 1 billion, actually, from us, from the German KfW, from the French Agence Française de Développement. Altogether, we are partnering on this one with the Coordinating Ministry of Maritime Affairs and Investments, CMMAI, as main implementing agency. You have the 3 reform areas. I will go into that afterward. And the sub-program. When you have a PBL is a very strict process whereby you have to define a period of time when policies, regulation have to be passed, enacted, completed, implemented. So the first one has finished in December 2023. The second one has started and will go up to December 2025, which is the horizon for the National Action Plan. Doesn't mean that we will not, we will stop our effort afterwards. Obviously, we will continue. So that's the snapshot. You know the context, obviously, of plastic waste, the global context, and Indonesia context is exactly is illustrative of what these challenges are in the region. There are many issues related to plastics, greenhouse gas emissions, obviously climate change, health, population health. Not only climate change, but it affects revenues of a lot of people, fisheries, communities in the coastal and marine areas. So, you know, it speaks to people, to government officials, when you say you are not here only to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, because a lot of people are doing that and with many instruments, but you're also here to enhance revenue generation from local communities. You see here quite a significant amount of global GHG emissions by plastic production. I think this morning James and also Rocky explained that, and the trend is going upwards. Unfortunately, even if the GPT is going to be signed, I'm afraid that the GHG emissions will keep going up because the plastic life cycle is in itself inherently generating GHG. At the regional level, we have 5 countries that are contributors of plastic pollution and plastic leakage in waterways and oceans. And those countries are actively taking steps, actions to reduce that. There is an ASEAN framework of action on marine debris. There is a regional action plan that's been signed also in Bangkok a few years ago. And then the countries have taken action. And Indonesia was the first to establish a very commendable and comprehensive regulatory framework. So here are the effects of the mismanagement of plastic waste, climate change, obviously, GHG emissions and air pollution. You can see, and this is not minor, 6.5% of Indonesia GHG emissions are coming from the waste sector, which is the 3rd biggest after agriculture, you know, and land usage and energy. And what appears here, women and children predominantly impacted by burning waste is just a fact. So this is really something that matters to all of us. That's one. Second, damage to tourism and fishing industries. This is where it hit the wallet, right? We have to think of something that is also speaking to government. Why do we want you to borrow money from us? Yeah, because when you do that, you will reduce the losses that you are incurring today on your tourism industry, on your fishing industry. The plastics on this image, I think everyone knows that. Plus the fisheries and you know the land, the catch of fish and are all. How could I say that? You have a lot of studies saying that fishes that have been collected have all microplastic embedded. So for them, obviously, and for us at the end of the chain, this is very hazardous. Obviously, the biodiversity also, the mangroves, the coral, the seagrass, the seaweed, all of this is being impacted. You can see a lot of mangroves entangled in plastics wherever you look at, and this has something to do also with the resilience of the shores and the coastal areas to climate change. Damage to economy has been numbered here. That's again not minor. Last one, adaptation, I would say, blocking waterways. Plastic, and someone said that this morning, plastic bags are blocking waterways in an enormous way, exacerbating flooding, and we can see that everywhere in the big cities. So here, a snapshot of what you know already, but what matters are the percentage. In Indonesia, around 7.8 million tons of plastic waste produced every year, out of which almost 60% is mismanaged, meaning that it's not collected, 60%. And look at the first 40%. These 40% are being collected, but some of it, once collected, is also mismanaged. So at the end, you find this 60% uncollected being either burned, on the backyards or wherever you can burn your garbage, dumped in sanitary landfill or not sanitary, or thrown, on the soil or on the waterways. 10%. Only 10%, 9 to 10%, I think, is being recycled properly, and that's a figure that is, I think, the same for all ASEAN. So this is what we are trying to tackle, what the National Action Plan is trying to tackle here. This National Action Plan, 70% reduction in plastic waste leakage by 2025, baseline 2019, that's very, very ambitious. But Indonesia has already achieved 35% by 2022. Huge effort. Without us, obviously, we are just accompanying and trying to accelerate that. Huge effort, huge proactivity, political willingness. You see on the right-hand side, again, what we think could be an international agenda pushing maybe this progress. The GPT, if it happens, when it happens, if it's ambitious enough, will help pushing this forward and pushing the progress. The new National Medium-Term Development Plan, as I think it is being drafted, will keep on continuing the effort on waste. And this National Action Plan, you can see 5 areas. Behavioral change is very important because people throw things. Why do they throw things? Because there is no collection. They have no collection, or if there is collection, you have to pay for collection. So affordable, the willingness to pay, something we have to look into at Chirabon. I think you are looking into that already. That's part of the study. So behavioral change, reducing land-based leakage. 80% of what is in the ocean comes from the land. 80. So if we manage what is on the land, you will have mathematically 80% less going on the ocean. And then it will be time to clean and collect what is already stocked into the ocean. Reducing plastic production and use. Rocky told about that this morning. This is a bit difficult, but that's this is politically sensitive, and this is where we are going with the GPT. So a PBL, again, it has reform areas. Think of it like policy reforms. So reform area 1, plastic waste management system improved. This is downstream. Set of policy to improve the collection of waste through a digitization of the retribution fee, the fee that is being collected door to door by the local government, through, and that is very important, a budgeting approach. For local government to do collection of waste, it has to be embedded into its prerogative. This is not for the time being. So this, I bolded this, mandatory basic service. Once waste become a mandatory basic service like health, education, which it is not now, then the local government will devote part of their budget to it, right? Second reform area, problematic plastic production and consumption reduced. So problematic plastic are the SUP, the single-use plastic, or the avoidable plastic. Those our speakers talked about this morning. How do we do that? There is this ERP, Extended Producer Responsibility Scheme, that is being already alive and kicking, I would say, in Indonesia, but needs more mandatory features. That's the case also in Philippines. You do have an ERP, and this ERP could be more accelerated or maybe mandatory. Single-use plastic ban. Of course, when you think about SUP, you think, okay, plastic bags, straws, cups. So let's ban them. That's one thing. But when you ban single-use plastic, there are many ways of doing that. You need also to think about substitution industry. What will you replace this with? Cassava, coconut, or do we have this industry already in place? Yes, no. Could we have, a stick on carrot? Somehow we could have a fee on producers or on consumers for the SUP. We could also have some voluntary agreements, from private sector to move towards reduction of single-use plastic. And then, and this is very important because waste data are a bit vague sometimes, and more so in the ocean. Obviously, we need to have a national waste information system, very reliant, very reliable, and this is also what the government is doing. So those are the areas of policies from the government. Am I going too quick or still okay? No one is sleeping. 2 minutes. That's good. So no one is sleeping. Then I'm putting this slide here. To get into detail, this is what a PBL looks like. I'm just looking at the reform area 2, the one which is upstream, reduction of plastic, problematic plastic production. You see the policy actions that we have worked out together with the government, not us, obviously. These are government proposals that we are pushing. EPR, and you see what's important is the outcome indicators on the right-hand side. What will we achieve with that? And when we say that, the government kind of sign off. When we do the loan, they sign off on these outcome indicators, and that's huge. 40,000 tons of plastics waste reduced through producer commitments. We have 16 or 18 only producers who have handed over waste roadmap to the Ministry of Environment. So far, 16. How could we achieve this in 2025? That's quite ambitious. The second one, the second 200 of the largest producers will have submitted their roadmap. This is the first step to an EPR. This EPR is voluntary. It's a gentle one. It's not a fee EPR. We try to accelerate the timing. 40% of all citizen agencies, we are talking about 515 or 14, if I'm not mistaken, citizen agencies in Indonesia, so 260 almost, would have issued a ban or local regulation to restrict problematic plastic by 2026. We have to date 16%, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So you see, this is what we try to achieve with the PBL, and the beauty of that is this is a loan. That's a loan, so it's not grant. We have grant on technical assistance, but this is a loan, and this loan is again of a fairly significant amount, 500 million for when it comes to us. So the government of Indonesia is borrowing 500 million from us to do that. First time. I mean, this is not to create any wastewater facility, any new equipment. This is just to push a set of reforms, and we really want this PBL to be replicated around in ASEAN. And I think we can do that once we show some success, and we do. How do we do that? Once we will have signed the PBL with Indonesia, and we have thought about the second period of implementation. We are already discussing with Philippines here, government of Philippines, for a replication of this PBL. But it will be larger than plastic waste reduction. It will be blue biodiversity and also one reform area, probably on plastic waste reduction. Why again? Because there is an existing national framework, existing political willingness. National plan of action for the prevention, reduction, and management of marine litter. This is a plan. This is not a regulation yet. So if we go that way, we want to make it a regulation. Again, we will do that with our friends, the French, the German. We will team up, and we will also bring a lot of technical assistance for the government and the implementing agencies to progress the policies or the set of reforms that needs to be progressed. So this is a bit arid because this is a set of, let's say, 10 to 12 policies with outcome indicators, one implementation period, a second implementation period, very, very technical, but then there's a lot of technical assistance, and we review the progress every 6 months, let's say. But this is programmatic. This is 5 years, 6 years. And I'm sure, I'm very certain by 2026, we will have achieved what we want, what you want, I mean, in Indonesia, and we will be very, very, very proud of being part of this. Now, we want to do that in Philippines. I hope that we will be in a position to do that by 2025. We already had some discussion with Thailand, but very, very introductory months ago, but that's going to be amplified after we have progressed on Philippines. Because of this, because at a regional level, there is a willingness as well. There is a background. Now, as Rocky said this morning, I think you said that, Rocky. Obviously, what we decide on Asian level needs to be aligned with the national legislation and regulation, and this consistency is really more of the essence. So we have a framework. We will have I think the experience. We need this political will to keep moving forward, and I hope we will have good lessons learned from what we have done in Indonesia. And that's it for me. Thank you.
I have to lower the mic now. Thank you so much, Galan. That was a great overview on the Blue Sea Finance Hub and how it's a unique finance mechanism because it's financed to push reforms, and it's a loan of $500 million. And the next step is to expand it, and there's some potential to expand it in the Philippines, already starting conversations in Thailand. So we hope that we can see this type of model being replicated in other countries. So the other finance mechanism that has come up several times this morning is the idea of plastic credits. It came up in all the conversations that we've been having, even in the talks this morning, and we have our next speaker to talk about and focus on unlocking the potential of plastic credits. Our next speaker is Nanette Medvedbo, founder of PCX Solutions and PCX Markets, dedicated to accelerating the transition to a circular economy and a future where no plastic waste ends up in nature. Witnessing the impact of plastic pollution in the Philippines, she launched the nonprofit PCX Solutions in 2019, setting the first global standard for plastic pollution reduction. In 2021, she established the for-profit PCX Markets, a traceable plastic cleanup credits platform, which has prevented over 59 million kilograms of plastic waste from leaking into the environment. She has been named an Asia Game Changer Climate Hero by the Asia Society in 2022 and recognized as one of the Forbes Asia's Heroes of Philanthropy. Let's all welcome Ms. Nanette Medvedbo.
Okay. Oh, I see. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me. I made this presentation based on the outline that ADB sent me, so I'm assuming that a lot of the pretty basic information on pollution and the circumstances in the Philippines have been covered. So I'll just dive straight into what we have been doing and how we envision credits playing a part in the solution to the crisis. Oh my, okay. Okay, so we envision plastic credits. Later I'm going to tell you a little bit about how it works, but this is how we define it. So a plastic credit is an environmental unit representing 1 ton of plastic waste diverted away from nature, obtained through documented, at least in our case, documented and verified collection, aggregation and recycling or processing activities. They're intended to fund the development of better waste management and circular economy solutions, environmental rehabilitation and social justice interventions. That is the traditional definition of a credit. A little bit later, I'm going to be introducing how we are intending to turn the term credit on its head by not just looking at downstream solutions, but also utilizing it as a finance mechanism for upstream solutions. But for now, we're gonna stick to this. A lot of times people ask us how this is different. I just came from a lunch with Warren, and we were talking about how is this different from carbon? Well, in carbon, these are kind of the pain points that we have in carbon. So it's very difficult to measure, or at least controversial to measure the impacts. You have traceability issues, and additionality challenges. There's a risk of double counting. A lot of times credits are modeled on future impact. So let me stop there and kind of go through the first three first. My CEO at PCX Markets likes to say, you need a PhD and some religion to believe that 30 years from now, a tree in the Amazon is going to sequester some carbon, right? There's a lot of black box math that's involved in that. And, you know, if I asked GB, my assistant, to measure the carbon in the room, collect it, and take it over to a processor, she'd probably think I've gone mad, right? She doesn't know how to do that. And probably most of us don't. But if I asked her, or if I asked you, go around the room, collect the plastic waste, weigh it, take a picture of it, take it over to the recycler and get a receipt, that you can do. It is tangible. And because it is tangible, it is much easier to trace it, to track it, right? And so, and by the way, you have all the other co-benefits. If there's a socioeconomic co-benefit, right? It's much easier to measure than it is in the carbon space. So the traceability is easier. It's also easier to baseline, so you can kind of figure out the additionality or even the permanence of it all. In our case, we do put our credits on the blockchain, and so the double counting risk isn't there. But I wanted to stop on number 3, which is the modeled future impact risk. If you have to believe, like a lot of credits out there, especially in the carbon space, a credit is a promise of impact. My project in Ghana is going to sequester next year 1,000 tons of credits. Now, can you please buy these? It is a promise of credit. At least in the Philippines, the way we are doing plastic credits at PPRS or at PCX, we do not sell capacity, because I sit on the board of WWF and I am paranoid. So I don't like that system. So what we do is, if we work with an obliged enterprise in EPR, let's say L'Oreal comes and says, I need 1,000 credits to meet my compliance requirement under EPR. We don't sell them the capacity of some project out there. What we say is, okay, hang on, here's your purchase order. We tell a project, L'Oreal needs 1,000 tons. They need to give us 4 documents: a collection receipt, which shows what kind of plastic, how much plastic, where did it come from, potentially the way in and way out of the truck when they deliver the plastic, a processing certificate for whoever receives the plastic and what they're doing with it, and then finally an environmental compliance certificate from the DENR. We require all 4 of those things. Do they give it to us? No. It goes to a third-party auditor who says, I've checked all of these documents. The impact was delivered. Once they say that, our team enters it in the blockchain. They actually upload the PDFs. And then a serial number is generated. That is the credit. It's not based on a project's claimed capacity over the next year. It is done. It is already delivered. And so that makes this a high integrity credit, right? So that's why I wanted to stop on number 3. Then one of the problems is inconsistent standards. Carbon standards are all over the place. There's so much confusion. So you're going to see in a few minutes why it's different with us. There is a contentious regulatory history and unclear community benefit, precisely because it's intangible. It's very hard. And I'm going to show you later how this becomes tangible with plastic. So we think that in as much as there is an analog for some parts of carbon credits and plastic credits, we also think they're very different for these reasons. Because it's easier to measure, because it's tangible, again, we are able to be traceable, transparent. We put those systems in place. We can measure additionality. We can prevent double counting. Again, impact delivered and verified today. There is clear converging standards on plastic. And I kind of want to take responsibility for that. When we started in 2019, 2018, there was no standard in the world for what we do for plastic offsetting. And we called the UNEP in Bangkok, we called Vera in DC, we called the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, we called everyone and said, is there a standard out there? And the answer was no. And since we were uncomfortable operating without a standard, we, who have no business setting a standard, wrote one. Because we just said, look, we'll put one together, but then we gave everyone copies because we said we do not want to create the confusion that we see in the carbon space. So let's share our standard and hopefully somebody does it better, or at least we converge. And that is happening well right now. We share our standards with Vera, we share it with WWF, we share it with the folks at Ellen Mac, we share it with everybody. And we say, look, if you find a way to do it better, let us know, we'll align. And if not, this is what we're doing, just so for your information, right? So this seems to be working well. There are a very few at the moment standards that are recognized, but there are those that are emerging. Especially there's this incredible tailwind behind the UN Treaty on Plastic Pollution and the INCs, and so there's a lot of interest in standards. And then there's, of course, the positive socioeconomic opportunity, which we're going to show you later because, as you know, not only is there an issue with just transition, but also the kinds of communities that get impacted by plastic pollution is disproportionate to poorer communities in developing countries and women, etc. Okay, how credit works, or how credits work. Just, I've got that disclaimer at the top. We do not claim that plastic credits is the silver bullet. Please do not think that. It needs to be part of a comprehensive solution set. And credits should not be used as an excuse to pollute. And over time, the pricing for non-legacy plastic offsets should increase high enough to encourage and eliminate the use of unessential plastics. So I just want to put that out there, and then I get rid of it. Okay, step one. This is how it works here and how we're seeing it in most places when it comes to the kinds of credits that we're working with in the Philippines. So polluter audits, I'm sure they don't want to be called a polluter. An obliged enterprise audits them and by a third party has their footprint calculated based on a standard. At the moment, they're using ours, but the government's going to come out with theirs. Accounting for scope, type of plastic, location, granularity, and netting activities. So you wind up with a plastic footprint. Again, we don't do that. We have a third, I think PricewaterhouseCoopers, Ernst & Young, all of those guys do this. And then they pledge. If they are in a voluntary market, it's, this year it's going to be 40%. Last year it was 20, continues to grow up to 80. But some companies, believe it or not, even in a compliance market like the Philippines, they go beyond compliance and have a big portion of their work be voluntary. So I'm not going to promote any companies here, but there are some out there here in the Philippines who say, even if the compliance is 20%, I'm going to do 100. And then you've got non-compliance markets. The US used to be a completely voluntary market. It isn't anymore. But they also do it not because of regulatory reasons, but maybe there is, headquarters has said, we are going to be X by 2030 or whatever. So these are the corporate goals, right? So they might be trying to be responsible for those reasons, or they're just reacting to the market. Because consumers want to support companies who are doing the right thing. And so maybe they're trying to buy their credits to be responsible in that way. And then we activate the cleanup. This is what I was talking about earlier. We don't sell the credits after somebody pledges and just take the money and get the receipt and hope the impact is delivered. We activate the cleanup, which then sets this process in motion. In the Philippines, and I know we heard in the presentation just before me that the recycling rates globally are a dismal 9%. That is true. In the Philippines, it's very challenging because we do not have the recycling capacity that many other countries might have. And so we've got, James was talking about Indorama out in Cavite for PET, but we have very little recycling capability or upcycling in the Philippines. So a lot of it goes to co-processing, but maybe with ADB, we're going to get those infrastructure funds. But this is kind of typically how it works. And then it gets, the impact needs to be verified by a third party before a serial number is issued. And I spoke to you earlier about the kinds of documents that are required. This is a sample project called Aling Tindera. And for those of you in the room who don't speak Filipino, loosely translated, this means sister store owner. So no surprise, we work with women. I did not, or we did not create the video you're about to see, just full disclosure. But it'll give you a sense on how the system works and the value chain and the kind of benefits. Oh, not yet. Next one. Okay, I'll do this first. So this is how it works. Aling Tindera is a waste to cash program. So basically, we work with the LGUs. We select a woman sari store owner, and we tell the community, rather than throw your plastic waste in the river behind the house or burn it, backhaul it to your closest Aling Tindera, and she will purchase it from you. So I'm pretty sure that if you go out in the streets of Metro Manila, you're never going to find newspapers, glass bottles littering the street, because the market has assigned a value to glass and paper. And so people collect it and sell it into the circular economy. We're trying to replicate that with plastic. So we're saying any kind of plastic you have, you take it to her, she will buy it from you. Communities love this because they get some incremental income. It's not a lot. They're, not buying a new house, but they may have a few pesos every time they go to the store. And they are not taking those few pesos home to save them. They are spending it in the store. So not only are they getting some incremental value out of their plastic waste, the Aling Tindera loves it because her average ticket price goes up. She has increased foot traffic, and when her container van is full, we give her a container van, which you don't see here. You'll see it later. When it's full, she calls us to pick it up. And she makes about a 25–30% spread on what she paid for the plastic. We dictate the pricing per kilo. So she makes additional money. And the LGUs love it because right now waste management is on the budget of the LGU. For every truckload that we haul away, the LGU is saving money and can deploy those funds to other priorities of the city. And by the way, the brand, as you're going to see who created the video, loves it because they look like they're part of the solution. So basically, these 5 things are what we do with Aling Tindera, and I just explained this, but the big thing here is that it encourages behavior change. It's telling you, please don't chuck your plastic irresponsibly, put it in the circular economy. So whether you are the child that your mom sent to the store to buy coffee or rice, you're learning that. Okay, don't throw away the plastic because I can bring it back and sell it and get something in exchange for it. So that's what we're finding is incredibly value, in addition to all the other stuff I talked about. And these are some of our women micro-entrepreneurs. Yeah, this is a sample of just this program to date, what they've been able to do. I think this has increased a little bit since the time this slide has been created, but it gives you an idea of what we're doing. Yeah, we like to show this because people say, where does the money go? Is it actually filtering down into the communities, or where's it going? So this pie chart kind of shows you, and maybe is meant to guilt the processors that they're taking most of the funds. But right now, the plastic cost is going directly to the community, and usually the hauling cost as well. But that's how the credits are broken down at the moment for this project. And these are the safeguards. I see I've got 5 minutes. So I'm sure you have this in the deck. And I'll try and use the time to show the video.
Mahalaga po yung basura, sir. Lalo na pag sisegregate po natin. At saka kaya nga sinasabi nila, yung sa basura, nandoon yung pera sa basura. Totoo yun po.
At PepsiCo Philippines, we partnered with Plastic Credit Exchange 2 years ago with a bold ambition of collecting plastic and building a circular economy. We've managed to empower women micro-entrepreneurs across the Philippines to encourage the communities to collect waste and then create an income out of it. So this cleans the environment and also adds back to the communities. And the second is all the plastic waste which is collected across, we safely either recycle it or treat it to end-of-life plastic usage via co-processing partners with Plastic Credit Exchange. So super happy with the results that we are seeing from the Allington Data program.
Last week, nagbenta po sa akin ay 14 persons. So ang umabot po na kilo, 3,000. Sa akin, ako po sir, dinadala ko po sa pangailangan po ng 2 kong anak na nag-aaral. Minsan yung mga bangka, nakikita nyo dyan. Oo, nagongolekta sila, kumukuha sila. Kasi nakikita naman nila yung aling tindera. Pwede pala, yung plastic, gawin pera. Para naman makatulong tayo, sabi ko, sa kalikasan. Maganda sana, maganda pala, meron palang kapupuntahan to. Sabi ko, may pera pa. May kita pa kahit na paano. One week lang, puno na kami kasi marami nagbebenta dito sa amin. Dito din na dinaladala ang mga plastic bottles nila at saka mga sachet, mga PET bottles. Nakatulong sila sa amin kasi malakas na kami mag-hauling. Nakapagpundar kami dito sa mga school supplies. Unti-unti. Nagpapasalamat kami sa PCX kasi kung walang aling tindera, hindi kami nag-expand ng mga tindahan namin. Proud po talaga kasi karagdagang kita na rin kasi yan. Kahit na marumi po siya, at least po sa malinis na paraan.
2022 was the 76th year of PepsiCo in the Philippines, and we expanded this community collection program to 76 new sites.
PepsiCo and the PepsiCo Foundation commit to invest more than $65 million in global recycling partnership initiatives to elevate waste collection and recycling rates.
Today, we feel super proud that PepsiCo Foods Philippines is 100% plastic neutral for all our brands across snacks and Quaker. This is the start of a long journey and PepsiCo is truly committed. We will continue to partner and invest towards building a circular economy in the Philippines.
Okay, that wasn't meant to be a commercial for Pepsi. But anyway, it just kind of gives you an idea of how it works from a brand point of view all the way through the value chain. I'm not going to, I know my time is if not up, pretty much up. So these slides are in the deck that you were provided. This talks specifically about EPR and kind of our theory of change. We actually feel that credits not only address the short-term needs of the plastic pollution crisis, but can be used as a long-term investment in the needs of the circular economy. And this is where, and by the way, this is Philippine EPR explained, but I want to jump to, you can see this in the deck. What I want to do is jump into this, which is what I was talking about earlier. Not only are we looking to use credits to clean up plastic pollution and divert it away from nature, but the reason why this is for participants only is because it hasn't been launched yet. It will be launched hopefully during INC4 in our new standard version 8. We are also looking to use credits to fund plastic alternatives, supporting those products that help you avoid plastic, whether it's alternatives using seaweed or coconut fiber or any number of things. So we want to support a transition away from plastics where it's possible. And then we want to invest in plastic innovation credits. This is a much earlier stage, looking a lot at the R&D. I know there are a bunch of projects, especially with universities, looking at how we can get out of this or provide solutions to the plastic crisis. And then the third one is the plastic infrastructure, waste infrastructure credit, which allows companies, any company to say, okay, my compliance is 80% of my footprint. I'll use half of that to clean up and divert away from nature, but I want the other half to go into a fund that builds it's the CapEx investments to increase the capacity or get better capacity into a country. So these are the way we're looking at not just using credits for downstream, but really trying to address the problem upstream so that we're turning off the tap. This is how we're doing so far in the Philippines. You can see it in your deck. These are the challenges. We'll be talking about this more in Ottawa at INC4. And these are the priority solutions. These should be fairly obvious to any of you who are looking at issues in developing countries. And my time is up, isn't it? So a standard sample, this is how our standard has developed at PPRS. We are looking at input to how this can become best practice. I know that we're going to be issuing this in April, Athalie? Yeah, in April. And this basically just goes through what I spoke about earlier, right? What is, in theory, what is the best way to deliver a high integrity credit? And this is the flow that we'll be introducing in version 8. It's not terribly different than version 7, but it's much more refined based on our experience on the ground. This is what a sample registry looks like. When I said we put it on blockchain, it is public. We do recommend this as a best practice to all countries we talk to, so that you can not only build trust in the system, public trust in the system, but more broadly, this just as you're looking at legislation, this is very informative. That's just the drop down. So it has the PDFs that I was talking about earlier. This is the last slide, I believe, and what we think the role in the UN treaty is. So we actually think it constitutes a critical financing mechanism and more importantly, a market-based mechanism. So many governments at the INC are worried that this has to come out of their national budgets or city budgets if it's a fragmented market. I was just saying that we were talking to the US delegation as well, right? If it's politically challenging to get anything through Congress or through the Senate, right? Or if countries simply lack the funding, this market-based mechanism becomes very attractive because it's a polluter pay concept. So it addresses all these issues, and we're worried that if we wait for a perfect solution, in 9 years, by 2050, we could actually wind up with another 9 billion tons of plastic debt, even if we drop our consumption by 40%. So that is super frightening. I sit on the board of WWF, and we always talk about the fact that if we do nothing, by 2050, there will be more plastic than fish in the ocean. So we're really very concerned about making sure there are mechanisms like this which can act immediately. And that's it.
Thank you so much. We'd like to invite you to join us here for a short question and answer, and also call back on the front, Gilon. And I saw a lot of people taking interest, taking pictures of the slides, but you will get a copy of this. So I'd like to open the floor for questions. And if you can, please introduce yourself first. So I think both presentations garnered a lot of interest from the audience. So please raise your hand and introduce yourself. Any questions? I see some hesitation of, yes.
Thanks a lot for the presentation. I want to ask regarding the PCX. So my name is Dian from Albert 3D Plastics Recycling Indonesia. So my first question is, how do you see the demand of plastic credits? Is it stagnant or increasing? And the market itself, because I see there are other players who are doing the same. And then second question is, if let's say the clients, for example, like PepsiCo or maybe other companies, how is the behavior? Is it like they buy only one-time project, or is like a continuation, like a year with increasing? So how is the customer behavior for who buy the credits?
Okay.
Thanks.
I'll just summarize the question.
Yeah, okay.
So the first question was on the demand. How do you see the demand of plastic credits? And 2, how do you see the behavior of your clients?
Yeah. So no, thank you. That's a great question, and you must be from the space because those are very important ones. So the demand is look. This is an emerging space. In fact, there was one point just a month or so ago where people would have called this an exotic credit, right? However, the World Bank just issued a $100 million bond, which has now taken us out of an exotic credit category. Look, there is demand, but it is mostly driven by compliance markets. So if you are in a compliance market like the Philippines, in Indonesia, you're supposed to have EPR as well, but there are lots of holes in it. You will have a baseline of demand, right? So in the Philippines, yeah, last year was the first year of compliance, so you're seeing your baseline of demand. But then there's the voluntary component. And if this goes the way of carbon, that's going to wind up being the largest part of this market. And what we're seeing is there is much more activity. When we started, it wasn't I mean, this was really emerging, but last year was a big year for plastic. Look, there's still very little liquidity in the market, to just be honest about it. But there is increasing interest, both at national levels, but as well as from the private sector, because businesses are terrified at what the UN treaty brings for them. And so they're trying to get ahead of it and understanding what plastic credits are like and kind of testing the waters, buying plastic credits here and there just to kind of learn what it's about. So that's what the demand looks like right now. It's very to your point on how are customers behaving, again, it's very similar to the first part, right? In a compliance market, whether they like it or not, they've got to do it. And so they just see this as a new cost of doing business. Unfortunately, compliance is highly variable in some companies are in denial and saying, I'm not actually an obliged enterprise, which is why I think the government wants to do a public hanging to make sure that companies realize that they're serious. But in a market that has inefficient or regulation that is not clear, like Indonesia, companies, despite EPR, are not complying. Nobody's complying. And the reason is because they say EPR is required, but there are no penalties. So it's pretty much voluntary if that's the case. So we're trying to help governments who rushed into their EPR policies, and that's what part of what Athlete does too, who's back there, is we actually help governments look at their EPR, understand where the weaknesses are, and fix them. So we're actually trying to tell the Indonesian government now how to fix it with penalties so that it actually becomes true compliance. Yeah.
Okay, we have another question there.
Yes, my name is Terry, the waste management specialist of ADB. So it's a very impactful presentation, and it brings me a new understanding. It seems there's another model. You are doing a company needed EPR system as contrary to those advanced economy like Japan, Korea, using the government needed EPR system. So what's the pros and cons between these two systems? Because the government needed, they're using the leaflet, container leaflet system to tax the production in ahead. So then they're get this leaflet back as a deposit to incentivize the whole change. But as you say that in some the enforcement in different countries, especially in our DMC developing countries, are vary, and some of that's no good. You cite a good example from Indonesia, because there's some maybe drawback on the plastic manufacturing company. They are very strong. They have lobbying. They don't like the government to this kind of the enforcing. So your company is not only working in the Philippines, and then you see there's a value for you to share the experience and also to let the government think through, and how you see, as I just asked in the beginning, how you see the voluntary system as you see, as you're leading by you, and the compliance system as come to the government, which one is a easier entry and what to take to scale up in the country? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Terry. So what are the pros and cons of the system, and how do you see voluntary and like required or mandated compliance? Like, what's the difference for that?
Is that the question,
So-
or is it more how plastic responsibility and EPR, because there are different systems of EPR. You're talking about a tax and a levy system versus what we're doing, right?
Yeah. I think for my question actually is a kind of consultation wisely, because I'm trying to build a new concept in smaller countries, and and then I want to know your experience, and then to see to kind of have a leaf flow evolution rather than just based on existing system, because maybe it's too expensive to do. We have the many study tour to Korean and Japan. It is so expensive to do in the EPR. It is not
Yes.
going to affordable by the smaller country. And what's in your you are comparatively much more lean and simple in
Yeah.
terms of the operation. So your experience may be very practical for the smaller country to learn.
Yes. No. So that's a great question. And we do get asked that a lot at the different country, at the bilaterals. The truth is there is not a one size fits all. I think there are EPR schemes that are taxed or levy based that work incredibly well because those governments do very good jobs of you have centralized systems, good enforcement, infrastructure. So, think of the developed countries who are doing this well, whether it's Germany or, whoever, even Japan for that matter, do these things extremely well, in which case, wonderful. But a lot of the countries that we work with are developing countries. And I'm not going to name any names, but the truth is you probably don't want that money going into government funds and having them worry about how to deploy it and having that money go places it's not supposed to go. So in those types of countries, we highly recommend a more market-based approach with government oversight. In the Philippines, that's what they've done purely because DENR does not have the bandwidth to do this themselves. They don't have the budget, they don't have the bandwidth. And so because they experienced a couple years of voluntary action, that has guided what they are requiring in a compliance market, and they are purely providing oversight. We think that works well in theory, but there are holes in the current legislation that we didn't realize we would need to plug until now. So we still believe this works well in developing markets, but it probably needs some refining. And if you go through the deck, you'll see what the challenges were and what we recommend we will be filing an amendment for the law. But that's what we do recommend. But again, it really depends on the country. In the US right now, there are 6 states which have become compliance markets. They all look completely different. But that's just the way it is. I think it's on a case to case. I don't know if that answered your question, but.
Thank you. I want to turn the floor to Gilan, and I had a question on your presentation. What are the prerequisites for a country? Because if we're talking about replication of the Blue Sea Finance Hub, what are the prerequisites for a country to be ready to have that loan, $500 million loan?
Maybe this is not a question to ask me, but more the government. Yeah, because this is a fair amount of money again. We are talking about. Well, this is the couple revenue versus environmental benefits that has been seen this morning. How much do I get if I borrow money from you? How much revenue or losses do I avoid? And does it do good to the environment challenges I do have? Does it serve the international commitment I do have, and I'm bound to as well? And in the meantime, does it allow for my community livelihoods to expand, or serve many other purposes? So I would say readiness is really how government has already established a regulatory framework. That's one, and the political will to go into enforcement of that on that framework. You said that EPR is, EPR in Indonesia is here, progressive, 10 years, not mandatory. There is no financial penalty yet. We think that we could discuss with the government about financial penalty, but we have to think about substitution industries and incentive. So it's a whole coordination issue. So we need to have political will. We need to have good coordination within the government. We need to have a pristine information system, and that's quite an ordeal. And we need also to have very friendly ADB guys, trying to pitch their proposal and have some people listening into the government. But once we have one operation that has succeeded, I think that will give us some kind of proof that it can work. So when Indonesia has reached 70% by 2025, then maybe people will raise eyebrows around and say, "Oh, that works." It's not us at all. That's Indonesia. We are just an accelerator, if we can, small accelerator, and that's just achieving again international commitment, national strategy, and political will. The way I see it.
Thank you. So political will, policy framework, coordination, and 2025 is next year. I just realized it. So 70% by next year. We have a question here. Maybe we have time for one last question or two more. Okay, last two questions. There's one here in the middle table, and then our last one there at the back.
I'm Peter from Risk Management. Actually, we're excited to see both countries and like Philippines and Indonesia. But given the volume, the plastic being involved here, like in the case of Indonesia, there's still about 50%, 60% not processed and dumped. Is it not ultimately both countries need like processing facilities so that even you collect them, you will be able to kind of process it into something useful? Is that part being addressed in like Indonesia and Philippines?
Okay, yeah. No, yes. I can speak for the Philippines and a little bit to the Indonesia experience. So in the Philippines, I can say 100% yes. The reason is because we had a couple years of voluntary action in the Philippines. And what we did is when the government approached us to help them draft the EPR legislation, the final language in Congress, we opened all of our books to them because nothing informs legislation better than data. And so we said, please do not replicate the mistakes of other countries where a bunch of lawmakers put their finger up in the air and said, this is what we want. It needs to be informed by how much capacity is there in the market, and both on the collection and the processing side. And please inform your strategy based on that data, because if not, you're setting up the legislation for failure. And you'll be giving the private sector an excuse not to comply because you just don't have that capacity. So I think in the Philippines, they did a very good job of looking at what's available, using the data to inform an ambitious policy. In other countries, in Indonesia, your specific question, they didn't do that. And so although the law itself is incredibly ambitious and we are, super excited, the truth is it's not based on available capacity. And so we're finding that private sector partners are complaining because they're saying, I have to do 50% by this time and 100% by this time. Where is the capacity for me to actually deliver that, right? And then second, even if it's not just on the recycling or collection, they're requiring the use of recycled content. There are no guidelines for that, right? So you are burdening the private sector. You know what I mean? So let's say, for example, one of the companies we work with spent millions of dollars trying to make their content recyclable, their packaging recyclable. But whether or not it was getting recycled is a completely different thing. So even if they spend millions of dollars to engineer the packaging to be recyclable, if it's not met by the infrastructure to recycle it, the net effect on pollution in nature is the same, right? And so you need to have informed government if you are going to create this legislation, and very few countries are doing that.
So we are highlighting the importance of data make sure that our policies and our laws are evidence-based, and of course, the infrastructure has to match also what we're trying to do. Gilan, do you want to add anything from the Indonesia context?
I would like to add that obviously the private sector is key in succeeding into this sort of life cycle of plastic waste reduction. Obviously, if you want to reduce or to recycle, you need to have the feedstock to recycle first. You need to make sure that you get all the good, valuable plastic to recycle, and then you need to have agreements with off-taker. You know, where will my recycled product go? Otherwise, it's for private, and you know what I'm talking about. I think you might think about feedstock in the first place in PT Alba. So that's really what we have to think about, what we have to help the government also enable in their policies. What the GPT, I think, is trying to also prepare is all this midstream industry incentives, technical guidelines, substitution, or how can we incentivize new substitution industries to replace the polymer that will be reduced, and how that does it have the same cost? What kind of benefits? How can we help them to do that? So in Indonesia, I think the recycling industry is going upwards. Probably in Philippines, this is more vibrant here already. Because the private sector in Philippines is really, you know, I mean, this is different perspective. So we have to take consideration of this of the existing features. In Indonesia, the private sector will follow the main guidelines when they are enforced. Definitely, for the time being, those producers who are submitting their roadmap are multinationals. They are showing off, I would say, like Pepsi. Yeah. They are showing that they are making a lot of progress. No, sorry, it's don't quote me. Huh? No, nobody quotes me, right?
They have, and it's not because of it. They're not responding to Indonesian legislation. They're responding to a guideline from headquarters because somebody made a statement that they're going to try and reach some sustainability goal by 2030. And so, to your point, yes, there's a lot of showing off because they need to be doing something. They need to be saying something. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We have one last question, and then we will go on break.
Great, thank you. Kin Chan here from the Markets Development PVP team in ADB. Just a question really related to the PBL for Gilan, more than on the plastic credits side. I think you mentioned really about the PBL, and there's an element about how the PBL will engage the public in terms of changing the culture. Just want to understand a little bit more about how the PBL is helping to do that. Because I think, you know, people's perception and their influence on how government, especially subnational government, operate is really important, I think. So that's one question. And also linked to that then, I wanted to check, in terms of your PBL, you mentioned that you're looking to increase the collection, so waste collection fees, basically. Are you looking just to increase the collection in terms of, you know, percentage collected, or you're also looking to increase the amount, the actual quantum being collected, given that many of these countries that we work in, including Indonesia, that amount is extremely low. And that has a huge impact on the ability of such national, you know, provincial cities to actually budget for waste management infrastructure and services. So just two questions for me. Thank you.
Thank you. So how does PBL engage the public and change behavior? And then the second question was on budgets.
Yeah. The waste collection fees.
Waste collection.
The first one is very tricky. The PBL is an affair, business between us and the government. You're absolutely right. So the behavioral change is really what matters here. How do we make the behavioral, the change into the behavior of communities? Waste bank in Indonesia are really moving the needle. That communities are involved and they are showing the way. And I think this is important for us to have this kind of stakeholder. This is very difficult because this is government to government somehow. So we need to find policy actions that could derive into behavioral change. There are none yet, not specifically because you don't have a policy or regulation saying or setting you will change your behavior. No, we can start segregating okay, I segregate if you tell me that you will collect my garbage, or otherwise, I just burn it at the end of my backyard. That doesn't make any change for any sense for me to pay for something that is not being collected. So we cannot state any regulation on that. That's very difficult. But this is a very, very good question we try to answer. So whatever technical assistance we will deploy will have to be deployed also through the community engagement. There are many initiatives like cleaning the beaches in Bali or somewhere else that we want to expand with the Ministry of Marine Affairs kind of clout or influence. I hope it will be enough. It take decades to change the behavior, but if we show that the collection, the transport, then the disposal is being accurate, fairly priced, and there's no exception up or down, maybe that will work. And the second question, how much waste shall we collect? The fact that when the collection rate is increasing, this is for the all waste, so organic, plastic, non-plastic, everything is being burnt as we speak. We don't segregate before burning. So I think once the collection system is in place, yes, all the waste will be collected and transported. And the waste management life cycle is designed not only for plastic waste, for the all components of waste. I'm not sure I've responded to your question correctly.
So thank you. Just to clarify, I think I was specifically on the second point talking about the level of collection fees from the public or from commercial enterprises who pay for the rubbish to be taken away, because I think that's historically been a huge kind of constraint for us to engage. So for ADB, for example, or World Bank to engage and say, can you help, what budget have you got available to, say, fund a recycling facility or a waste energy facility? And I think it's always a massive issue where they just only have so much allocation.
So very quickly on this one, 30 seconds. There is a waste calculator that the government of Indonesia has prepared for all the local government to deploy a waste calculator based on one method, which is an approximation of the household garbage. This waste calculator will define the appropriate collection fee, per city and regency, and then will also predetermine the amount of budget that will be necessary at the local government level to implement waste collection services.
Right. Thank you so much. I know this is a big topic and that we are in a bank, so we can talk about finance mechanisms for the rest of the afternoon. And we actually extended this session already because there's so many things that we can still talk about, but we have to catch up. And with that, we'd like to thank Nanette Medvedpo and also Gilan Devalon for sharing their expertise and their insights with us. So let's please give them a round of applause.